I don't know.
I did someday.
Yes, we're good.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Profluent. So welcome. As we get started with the evening, I just want to let you guys know there are a couple of house rules. The first one is to have a good time. Eat all of the food that you can, because Courtney has been working all day to make it, and we hope that you enjoy it. Number two is that this house is a no-selling zone, right? We all have plenty of things to offer each other to sell, but we mostly believe that when like-minded people come together, that we can do more good and eventually make more money by serving each other and coming together for that sole purpose. So, third, just because of that last noise, I'm going to ask you please turn your cell phones on to quiet, so that as we do our live broadcast, we don't have, we have as few interruptions as possible. So, a little bit about Profluent itself. Profluent is led by our CEO, Mike Drew. For those of you who don't know Michael Drew personally, I'll tell you a little bit about him. He has helped more people get on the bestsellers authors list than Oprah herself, and has helped over the past few years produce over $5 billion worth of revenue for all of his clients. So I think that's pretty good. He has studied with Roy H. Williams, who is known as the Wizard Abs. So, you know, some people will know him. Yeah. He started the Wizard Academy that has over 100,000 people take his courses every single year and go through. One of the values that he has, that we have also tried to emulate at Profluent, is the no-selling thing. So we like to make our evenings worth a lot of value to you, so that you want to keep coming back and, again, come together as a community rather than just individuals. In terms of what you can expect from tonight, we hope it's a lot of entertainment and also a lot of knowledge that you can take with you to apply in both your businesses and your daily lives. Things that we have learned from all of our mentors to help us to be able to have the success like Michael has had with all of his clients. So, this place that we know as Profluent is not for people who are takers or fakers, or looky-loos, or hand-wringers, or whiners, or people who are easily offended. Because I don't know if you've had more than a 5-minute conversation with me, I don't always have the best language, although I try to keep it that way. So, but we do have a wonderful value and a good message to help each of you to be able to apply in your daily lives. We like to bring in successful artists. Tonight we'll be hearing from Nate Drew on a piece that you composed it yourself, correct? Yeah. Okay. So we'll be hearing from him after I'm done with this introduction, and then Michael will be speaking as well. We believe that each of you has a soul purpose, S-O-U-L, and that soul purpose is your singular soul purpose in this life. And we hope to help people find that and be able to apply it, to be able to find their voice and test and refine their voice and share it with others around them. So that is our mission. Michael's personal mission is to help 6% of the world be able to share their voice. And that equals up to be around 466 million people all around. So it's a big goal, but we want to do that through evenings like this, where you can come together, you can learn things to apply in your daily lives and take it out to the people around you. So while you're here, make yourself at home, have a good time, and I'll turn it over to you.
You got it. Frank, is it good?
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah. We're high. We're happy.
How'd you do that? That's pretty good.
In case you're wondering, the earphone, he is the security bouncer, so if he gets up in the middle of his performance,
Yeah.
yeah, you're bad. You're time.
All right. Here, hand me that microphone so I can talk to Kent. Kent? Turn on this microphone.
Come on. Tell everybody that joke.
Let's see, this should be 10, I think. If it's not on stereo out, maybe you should change it to stereo out. All right, well, until he figures that out.
Oh, here's
Oh,
our
here we go.
Echo.
Okay, sweet.
We heard your thoughts.
This is the voice of God. Yeah.
Nathan, I want you to play the flute.
Can you rewind it, Ken? You're trying to talk back, Mike. I don't know what's going on. Still, the voice of God.
20 years ago, I heard Tim
You want me to
Wise
hold that for you?
They just think they just changed the
Can you got it?
Tell us about your flute.
I will tell you about my flute. I can hear it very faintly. There you go. It stopped and turned up. You can hear it tiny, tiny bit, kids. They're really, really small. Whoa, hey now.
So Nate, we can hear both mics on these speakers.
Yes, but it's really, really low down here. We can barely hear the music.
Yeah, the background music.
Oh god.
That's right.
I can't hear it.
Just so you guys are.
I'll give you an introduction to myself. Ooh, I'll step away from that mic, so I'm not quite the God voice. So I'm Nate Dro, Mike's brother. I am the founder of the Salt Lake Pops Orchestra. We have a YouTube channel that has millions of views. We work with Lindsay Sterling and House Boye, David Osmond, all kinds of pretty amazing people. And I've been film scoring, writing music for film for a long time. And so just about any instrument you can think of, I play. But this flute's pretty cool. A little bit of feedback. I'm saying that so Ken's can hear me. Anyway, so this flute was made by one of the top 3 flute makers in the world. And I chose this one in particular because it has a very clear sound for a wooden flute. Wooden flutes are known for sounding breathy a little bit. And this one has a very, very clear sound to it. So, Ken, how are we doing? You got the talkback mic on there?
Nate plays multiple instruments.
Okay, well, go ahead and push play so we can hear it. Yeah, we just don't hear anything. So,
Is it Jethro Tull that you're trying to cue up?
we are now waiting for Godot. Anyone here a fan of Neil Simon?
Here.
Anyone?
You're a what?
Anyone here a fan of Neil Simon?
Those giant earlobes?
Exactly. Did you hear he passed away?
No.
Yeah, he passed away a couple days ago.
Well,
Yeah, so we're making people roll in heaven. Yeah, he was one of my favorite playwrights for sure. But you did have music going, Ken, but now it's not there.
saw Tony Randall, Jack Klugman, and the Sunshine Boys on just off Broadway.
All right, since we're live,
Yes, it's really great.
I may have to play something about the backing track. So what I have prepared for you is a full orchestral song. This one, Ken's still worried about playing it. I'm just going to have you sit back and relax. This is, does anyone here meditate? Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and breathe in and out deeply while I play. And I just want you to, as best you can, feel that as best you can. Let's not mess with anything else up there, Ken, so we're just going to do this. Relax. Focus on your breathing or something that doesn't mean very much to you. And when your mind wanders, and it will, bring it back to that place of breathing or whatever it is that you're focused on. that he can roll the dice better, that he can draw better cards. And we have many long-standing games of Risk, including a very long game that he found. What is it called? Risk? Legacy Risk. Anyone ever played Legacy Risk?
I'm in.
Yeah, so it's literally 12 games of Risk, and in every game the rules change, and you open little envelopes that give you new cards and new rules, and anyway, it's really kind of crazy. Anyway, so Mike may be the most competitive guy that I know, and we can take this aside from his business stuff. The guy's just competitive, and he gets mad that I can beat him at ping pong. So let's have Mike come in, and we'll go through the 12 steps of intimacy. Here we go.
Well, if I'm not going to win, why would I do it? So, yeah, no, I think I was born competitive. I don't like to lose. I don't enjoy playing a game unless I win. So, and until I win. So anyway, I really enjoy doing these events every week. The goal of our group is to be able to help influence the world through helping other influencers build their audience in the platform. So it's always an honor to be here and to present. Our group is a community. It's not about the individual. It's not about me. It's not about Nathan. We're here trying to facilitate the growth of various industries by changing influencers and thought leaders in those industries. So our goal and objective with this event, as Brooke said, is not to sell anything. We believe that, as Roy would say, that we can do more together, build more wealth for each other together, not selling each other and working together than trying to sell each other. So we're not about selling here. We're about education. In fact, one of the things that my other mentor, Ray Bard, from Bard Press, taught me was that there are 4 pillars of all effective communication. And when we, in the future weeks, talk about buyer personas and persona architecture, we'll talk about how they align, but there are 4 pillars of effective communication. One is the big idea, one is the story, one is the nuts and bolts, the step-by-step process, and the other is the hope. And if you want to have truly effective communication, you have to have that in everything that you do. In fact, right now, internally at my company, Profluent, we're doing SOPs and other systems, and we're following the same process because it's critically important in effective communication to make sure that all of those things are there within the communication. So anyway, our goal here is to be able to help you find and share and amplify your voice. And every week we pick up different topics, and we will bring in different workshops as the second part to what we do. And I think everyone in this group has not either finished both parts of the book outline. So Nathan and I will be splitting tonight. Those of you that are new or haven't done a book outline, if it's the bigger group, will stay with me, and if it's the smaller group, we'll go with Nathan, and vice versa. One of us will do the front end, one of us will do the back end of the book outlining process. It's a really powerful tool that you find, that we find to be able to meet 2 demands in the marketplace. Number 1, quality of content, and number 2, quantity of content. What happens is, in a non-intimate environment, which is where all marketing and advertising is done, we have to do additional work, extra work, that we wouldn't necessarily have to do in an intimate environment. In an intimate environment, even like this is a small enough group that I can look at each of you in your eyes and have a conversation with you and change my tonality and how I hold myself, and we do this for each other naturally in conversation. When we move online, that's a very difficult thing to do. It's not impossible. Rather, it takes real intentionality in what we're doing to be able to make that happen. And a lot of what I call the douchebag marketers, what they do is they apply a very limited form of scenario planning. They keep it very linear, they keep it demographic and not psychographic. And for me, you have to marry both demographics and psychographics. The example that I like to give is, I'd like everybody, and some of you have heard this before, some of you haven't, so those of you that have heard it, play along, and we'll let the new folks see if they can figure this out. But what I'd like to do is ask everybody to pretend that their customer base are in Manhattan, New York. Okay? And I want you to pretend that I'm going to give you some demographics to show you the flaw in demographics. Not that it's wrong, but it's incomplete. It's insufficient. And so, what I want you to do is pretend that your audience are men between the ages of 35 to 45, living in Manhattan, New York, working in marketing, PR, or advertising, making between $65,000 to $95,000 a year in Manhattan, which is not a lot. It's not poor, but it's on the lower part of middle class. People make that amount of money. Balding, wears glasses, 5'2" to 5'6" in height, and possibly college educated. Would you guys all agree that's pretty clear demographic data on who your customer is? Okay. So what I want you then to do is pretend that you lose your wallet or your purse in Manhattan, New York. And your wallet or purse has your ID, your credit cards, your contact information, and $1,000 cash. And I want you to then pretend that someone representing the demographic that I just gave you comes across your wallet or purse. And again, that wallet or purse has your ID in it. It has your contact information. It has your credit cards, and it has $1,000 cash. Based on the demographics alone, what does your customer do with it? That's one option.
Who knows?
I'd say he returns it.
They get returns it.
You're right. There's a big hole.
It's insufficient. They can do anything. We don't know their psychographics. We don't know what drives them, what their decision making, what drives their decision making process. They could steal it. They could step over it. They could throw it away. They could turn it over to the police. They could return it. They could do anything.
They're one of the Hasidic Jews in there. They'll probably call.
They could call, right? But we don't know because
don't know.
even if we said they were Hasidic Jew, we still don't know because that's only one demographic coloration.
That's right.
That might limit it, but it's still insufficient.
Yeah, it's insufficient. It gives you an increment.
It is increment. It's not that it's not valid. It's important data, but it's insufficient on itself.
Right.
Well, what if I told you that the person who found your wallet was George Costanza from Seinfeld? What would George do with the wallet? Any of you watch the show? Any ideas, guys? So, what I love about George is that, first of all, he's a fictional character. And if you know the show, I could say, what's your favorite show, sir? What's your favorite show or movie?
Oh, gosh. It depends on what's out.
Do you know Star Wars?
I love Star Wars.
All right, what would Han Solo do with it?
Han Solo would keep it.
You probably would keep it. You have an idea of what that fictional character would do in different environments. He probably would do something different in A New Hope than he would in A Force Awakens, because the characters change, right? There's character development. But it's still a fictional character.
Right.
So what Hollywood has done, what good fiction writing does, is it suspends our disbelief in reality and speaks to a psychological and emotional belief within ourselves. And it allows us to be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, in their mind. That's why we can watch a movie or a TV show or read a work of fiction, because we love to be able to go from this universe to another. We know psychologically, neurologically, that human beings are better designed to experience worlds that don't exist than actual reality. And as marketers, business owners, this is something that we should learn. We should know that we are better designed, our customers are better designed to experience worlds that don't exist in actual reality, and we should learn from Hollywood. We should learn from fiction writers and be able to create marketing engagements and advertising engagements that allow the reader, viewer, listener to go from this reality into our reality. Roy Williams would say, good advertising replaces the current thought of the listener, viewer, reader with the thought that you want them to have. And that's exactly what good fiction does. And what I would posit to you that George Costanza would do from Seinfeld is there'd be a whole episode about it. He'd bring the wallet back to Seinfeld's apartment. Elaine would say something like, "Oh, you just got to return it. It's the right thing to do." And Kramer would come up with something kooky like it's a CIA conspiracy or it's the mafia or who knows, right? He would come up with something crazy. Seinfeld would be more practical and say something to the effect, it's too much effort, just turn it over to the police. And I think roughly what George would do is he would return the wallet and keep the money. And he would come up with a justification like, someone more nefarious could have found the wallet, stolen your identity, so you won't besmirch me for keeping $1,000 for payment. Now again, the value in this character is that we know this fictional character, but I would challenge you within your neighborhood, within 4 houses, Could you definitively know, could you define what everyone around you would do if they found that wallet on the street of New York, or Salt Lake, or Provo, or wherever? And the reality is probably not. But good marketing requires not that we just know the demographics of the customer, but that we know what motivates the customer to take an action, right? And so what we want to do when we create content is know the journey that the customer is going to go on. Good fiction writers from Hollywood will, before they ever write a storyline, unless they're writing action movies, which is just storyline, is they will do full character development before they write a lick of storyline. Because what they know is that character arc requires that a character go from point A to point B to point C. And that arc is contingent upon the interfacing with other characters on their own story, on their own character arc. And so they create these characters to create, in marketing, some people call them avatars. The creators of the process are Brian and Jeffrey Eisenberg and Anthony Garcia, and they called it buyer personas, based on what the Greeks did with their masks. They were called personas. I would say that people who use avatars follow a bastardized version of what Brian and Jeffrey created, and Anthony. And that the more accurate version is this persona architecture process. But what they do, and what we're talking about when we discuss 12 steps of intimacy, is to know your customer so well that you can map out all of the contingencies that they would make in building a relationship with you. Because again, what we're doing is taking someone from an intimate environment and bringing them into a non-intimate environment. And what we want to do is help emulate, like good fiction writers do, that new world and that new form of intimacy to develop and establish trust with our customer, right? And so personas, and we'll do a different conversation about this in future weeks, are one way to be able to do that. But another thing that we talk about in mapping out the buyer or the customer journey is the understanding of the psychology of the process of establishing trust with the customer. Now, I think, Brooke, when Nathan mentioned earlier, I wrote a New York Times bestselling book with my mentor, Roy H. Williams, titled Pendulum, How Past Generations Shape Our Present and Predict Our Future. And in that, Roy and I went back and researched the last 3,000 years of recorded Western civilization. And the purpose for that is that we wanted to give our clients a competitive advantage. And how do you give someone a competitive advantage? Well, one way might be to be able to predict the future. Well, how do you predict the future? Blackie Sherrod, the famous sports writer from the Chicago Tribune, stated, the reason history must repeat itself is because we pay so little attention to it the first time. And in the book of Solomon, we know that King David said, the thing that has been is that which shall be, and that which shall be is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It has already been of old time which was before us. So Roy and I, as a strong evangelical, knew that what we needed to do was go back and look at patterns in history. You see, knowing what an individual might do is difficult, but knowing what a culture would do, knowing what a society would do in mass is something that is actually documentable and presentable. And so we did this research, and we came up with the conclusion that there are two 40-year cycles, and there's some microcycles within that, but a 40-year cycle about me, the individual, about freedom and self-expression and looking and feeling good and having experiential things and believing that you can do anything, right? And on the other side is the we cycle, about the community, about coming together to do what's best for everybody, right? And what we noted in our research was that neither were wrong. Rather, what happens is human beings, psychologically, physiologically, always take a good thing too far. And so when you take me too far, and you suffer the iniquities of that, we become a society that's plastic and phony, and a society of posers. And the youth of society reject that mindset, and in the construct of a pendulum, become the gravity that pulls towards the other cycle. And in a we cycle, it's when we take we too far, we basically, in groups, start demonizing each other. Every witch hunt in the history of the world has happened within 10 years on either side of the zenith. So here's the zenith, 20 years up, 10 years before, 10 years after. Within 20 years, every witch hunt in the history of the world has happened within from a me cycle, which was 63 to 2003. Oh, the height of the personal development industry, for those of you that are in it, was 1983. That's when Tony Robbins came out. If you want to look at what they call the classic 80s, movies like Wall Street did a really good job of epitomizing taking me too far. Not that there's a problem with me, it just went too far. So that was the zenith, the height of the me, moving into this now current we cycle. And the value sets in a me versus we are distinctly different. Me is about push. We is about pull. Me is about seduction. We is about intimacy and trust. Now, neither are wrong. Rather, knowing which system you're in will define what types of models will work, what type of communication will work. As we're in a we cycle today, the old transactionary models that come from what I call the douchebag marketers work less and less and less well, because people in a me cycle want to be pushed to be bigger and better than who they were. In a we, that's not a currency that we have. It's about delivering value to others, being able to get results. The personal development industry as a whole doesn't even keep track of the success rates because they know that they don't even hit placebo levels of success. But we know that they should be, by definition, if there's any value there, hitting at least placebo levels of impact, but they don't. So when we did this research and determined that we were now in this we cycle, we asked, based on the value set of a we cycle, we said, all right, if it's about community and it's about intimacy and about relationship, beyond marketing, what industry addressed intimacy and relationship more than marketing? And our answer was marriage counseling, right? It's been around for quite some time. People have been married for time immemorial, and there's been some level of counseling or therapy around that for a long time. And in our research, what Roy and I determined was that modern marriage counseling today is based on the work of a gentleman by the name of Desmond Morris. You see, in the late 1950s and early 1960s, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm going to be anatomical about this. It may be offensive, hopefully it's not. There was a question about the Homo sapien primate. And the question was, are we a pair-bonded or promiscuous species of primate? You see, in the world of primates, they run the gamut from incredibly promiscuous with the bonobos, who will screw really anything. Any other animal, any other species, doesn't matter. They will do anybody. To the chimps and the gorillas who will have one or two mates for life. And what they found, why there was a difference between one group being promiscuous and the other being pair-bonded, actually had to deal with the size of the male testicle of that species. And the Homo sapien primate happened to fall smack in between all of the other primates. So there's a genuine anatomical question, are we a pair-bonded or promiscuous species? And so Desmond Morris was a zoologist and clinical researcher, and he did the research, and what he found is that Homo sapien primate prefers the security of a pair-bonded relationship while still desiring promiscuity. And so then he did the next level of research, and the question was, that he wanted to answer was, what defines a long-term pair-bonded relationship versus a short-term pair-bonded relationship? And what he found was at the core level of all long-term foundational relationships, that there are these 12 steps of intimacy that must be followed. And that if more than one step, any two steps or more, 2 and 5, 4 and 8, doesn't matter what they are, you pick the 2 or more steps, that the psychological impact on the two parties would be the same as having a one-night stand. I mean, if you skip 2 steps, you have less than and this is what the direct marketers will talk about, you have less than a 3% chance of having a long-term relationship with that other party, right? In direct marketing, 3% is like, that's the number that you want to go for. LTV is around 3%, that's what everybody's aiming for, because what they've done is created models of transaction that violate intimacy within communication and marketing, and therefore that's the best that they're going to get. In reality, if you do the right thing, your LTV for your customer should be higher. It takes longer to get the customer, it takes more work, but once they're in, once you're delivering value, once you understand them at a core level, then you're able to deliver the value that they need, and they're going to stay around and they're going to engage with you more and more and more. And so what we look at with the model of the 12 steps of intimacy is taking, well, the first question I'd ask you guys is there a difference for your psychology when you're dealing with your significant other or when you go to buy something? Are you a different person? Does your psychology change? Does your physiology change?
No.
So if it doesn't change, then why would we market to someone differently than we would engage with them in a real-world environment, right? One of the things that I like to point out is that an opt-in page, I hate opt-in pages in the traditional context because they're kind of like saying I'm speaking on a big stage, and people come up to ask me questions after I speak, and I say I won't answer your question until you give me your business card, right? That doesn't feel good to anybody. But that's what we do online. Why do we do that online? Because that's what you do when you're looking at numbers. You're not looking at your customer and audience as people, you're looking at them as numbers. You're looking at them as stats. And when you do that, you make a different decision set. But if you can look at them as people, then you can increase the conversion rate of what you're doing. You can increase the LTV, the lifetime value of the relationship with your customer because you're respecting them. The other analogy that I use when applying the 12 steps of intimacy and skipping more than one step is kind of like playing tile. Has anyone in the group ever laid tile before? A few of you. So if you start off half an inch at the beginning of the room off, by the other end of the room, what's happening? You're way off, right? So while at the beginning of a relationship, whether it's interpersonal or business, it may not feel like that big of a deal to be a little bit off. But over time, this is why skipping 2 steps is a problem, it grows apart. And so what the marriage counselor said is, let's figure out how to relay the tile, essentially, once we figure out what steps we're skipping. Well, in marketing, because we're talking about non-intimate environments, what we have an obligation to ourselves and to our customers to do is to understand and map out what their customer journey is going to be from beginning to end. And it requires us understanding them at a very deep level. So persona architecture, which is something we'll talk about in a future week, is something that you'll want to do. But the other thing that you'll want to do is understand the exchange of currencies between you and your customer. Now, money is a currency, but it often isn't the most important currency, right? Time is a currency. Your being here is a currency. Energy is a currency. Your being here with energy is a currency. Information is a currency. If I opt in for something, if I answer a question, I'm sharing a currency. So the value that I receive back better be equal to or greater than the investment that I put into that development of currency. One of my clients in Salt Lake is Garrett Gunderson. He's a financial expert. And in the 12 steps of intimacy, we normally take money at step 8 or step 9. Garrett doesn't ask for money because he's a financial expert until step 10. Because the amount of information, financial information, intimate information that has to be shared in order for him to do his job is so great that it would be inappropriate for him to ask for both that depth of information and money at the same time. Does that make sense, guys? And so what we look at is the mapping of the customer's experience against what currency is appropriate to ask of the asking the customer to deposit in that relationship bank account. Now, we're running a little bit behind because of the technical error, so I'm going to really quickly go through the 12 steps, and then we'll break into the 2 groups. I'm going to speed through this. If after or during desserts, once the workshops are done, if you'd like to ask me in more depth questions about the 12 steps, I'm more than happy to get into that. So, I always like to start with the end in mind. So in Desmond Morris's work, step 12 was sex. Now, we shouldn't be having sex with our customer, but metaphorically, it should represent the most intimate engagement that we can share with that customer, with that audience, whatever that is. It's the deepest level of engagement that we can have. Now, when you start there, and then you go all the way back to step 1, then you'll note that the end result for the customer will dictate all the little details all the way through. So at step 1, it's eye to body. I see a beautiful woman, and I make the determination, am I interested or not? Now, in that environment, what does the beautiful woman control over me? Step 1 is eye to body. What does she control? In a restaurant, at a club, what does she control? Exactly, Marcel. How she presents herself. Right? How she's presenting herself. She can't control how I view her. She can't control how I judge her. All she can do is control how she presents herself. And all advertising fit at step 1. All advertising. Anytime that you are being seen in an environment that you do not own, that you do not control, is step 1. Step 2 is eye to eye. I see the beautiful woman sees me. And this is where the concept of flirting comes in. This is a micro exchange of information. And normally, if you don't know someone well, and you're flirting with them, it's I look at you, and I look away. I look at you, I look away. And it's a back and forth thing because there's not enough trust in deposited in the relationship bank account to be able to stare at someone long enough. There are people in this room at various levels, and I can look at them in their eye for longer periods of time or shorter periods of time based on how well I know them, right? But there's not a person in this room that I couldn't look in their eyes long enough that eventually I would freak them out because of the way that we exchange that type of information, right? We have to have permission to do that, and so it's very natural for us. It's also why it's easy for a speaker to want to look at each of you in the eye because I want to connect, but also because if I look at any of you too long, more than the currency that we have in our relationship, it's too much. So step one is eye to body. Step two is eye to eye. We see each other. Step one is advertising. Step two is what is their first engagement with you. So step one in this theory is a Google ad, and they click on it and they go over to your site. If you're seeing them and they're seeing you back, you know who they are, which is why you do personas. You know who they are. You know where they're coming from, what their felt need is. You know their language, and you know what to give to them so that they proverbially feel seen by you. It's still in a non-intimate environment, but if you know your customer well enough, where they're coming from, you can speak their language about what's important to them, both based on their felt need and their language based on their psychographic. So that would be it. So we use blog posts instead of landing pages because blog posts allow for what we can do at step 3, which is voice to voice. It would be inappropriate for me to meet a woman at a bar, flirt with her, and go up and kiss her. Right? It's just too many steps of intimacy that are being skipped. And if I did kiss her and she kissed me back and she didn't slap me, what is she communicating? She's communicating that she wants a transaction, not a relationship. Right? Because we skip too many steps. Because kissing, by the way, is step 8. So if I go from 2 to 8, we skip 5 steps. We probably rush it a little bit too far, and we're both communicating that what we want is a transaction. Right? And what pickup artists do is they try to skip as many steps as possible to get to that end result, which is what most direct marketers are known for doing, skipping steps to get to the end result of money. So voice to voice. It would be natural for me to flirt with somebody and then go talk to them, right? Let's have a conversation. Let's see if there's an alignment of value and perspective and that we can get along. If I was flirting with a beautiful woman and she was dumber than a bag of nails, no matter how pretty she is, I'm probably personally not going to have any interest in her and I'm going to move on. And conversely, if she found me too dry or uninteresting or like the wrong sports team or whatever else, she's going to probably feel the same way. And so we have to have that exchange of conversation. So we use blog posts instead of landing pages so that we can have that voice-to-voice conversation. Because on blogs, you can have back and forth dialogue. And not only that, just like in the real world, you can have multiple people involved in that conversation. Step 4 is hand-to-hand. So it can be hand-to-hand, it can be hand-to-hand. It's really that first physical touch. In the dating sense, it would be in the movies when the guy reaches his arm around the girl, or when they play footsies under the table, or the first time you make contact with your pinky to their pinky. It's that first physical, energetic exchange between you and the other person. Now, what a lot of the douchebag marketers do, direct marketers do, is at this point, they ask for an opt-in to get something. To me, this is too early in the relationship building process to ask for the phone number of the person that you'd like to ask out on a date. This is an opportunity for you to deepen the relationship with your customer. So what we do at step 4 is we offer free things that are downloadable that you don't opt in for, to allow the customer to invest more time into the relationship. And again, relationships are two-way. If I do all the work and they do all the work, then it's not going to set up the relationship properly, just like in the real world. Or another thing that we like to do is what we call a reverse opt-in. So we give value at step 4, and then we ask for the opt-in at step 5. We ask for the name and the phone number at step 5. Let's use them an email address after we've delivered the value and saying, now that we've delivered you this value, we want to deliver you more value. And when we do that, what we find is that we have a higher opt-in rate, and we have a higher opt-in rate with better quality information. How many of you use a spam email address
for recording breathy, for some reason this sounded a little bit off. For me anyway. Maybe for others.
You know what? It's your deal. So
Yeah, you're right.
you get to choose, man.
And tell me your name.
Kevin.
So Kevin, what's your passion? Oh, the ask stuff? Or was that the other guy? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just running up and down. So on leadership. Okay, so what is your take on leadership?
Well, you know, first of all, almost no works. And fewer practices. Because it becomes a lifestyle. You really have to do this structure, conduct, and charisma, and so character is the foundation. You have all the other just fades away in those. Think about the most charismatic speakers the world's ever come. Well, beyond that, he was people talking about his presence was charismatic. So his character is totally angry. And so the whole thing comes totally his particular
Strangely enough, another one of those.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. And Mr. Rogers was, and Mr. Rogers has foundation character. So I haven't seen the movie. You guys see it. You gotta see it. But anyway, he had this foundation character, and that was all.
He has this process.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Was that in the movie?
Yeah, some of the processes were just about he's the one 167 and he kept his weight. His weight. Yeah. Which is fascinating. He talks about that. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm trying to remember what you can but he did. And then that was so amazing. He would come first. You know,
I mean, he was soft-spoken. Like he wasn't like boast. He was just
but nice guy. Yeah, but he didn't need any filling, and he connected with his fans. And that was
how extrovert doesn't matter. If you speak to
yeah. Well, you see, if who you are is better,
well,
then you're toast. Oh, I get that. But the reality is that they lose it. Follow up so much. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's possible even to totally major. But I hope it's not. But you wonder.
well, I mean, it's the reason why we have.
Yeah. If you are, they're a relative. I've never found them result. Kevin, it's a pleasure to meet you. Yes, I think. A little different. Yeah, I love it. Thank you for that. I just didn't change it. You know, but in this day and age, if you can spell me, and you Google me, you go to 10 pages, you find something that's not. That's awesome. So, I'm always on the first, I do 10 pages, just my, if you can spell me, both names.
Okay, well, you're encouraged by a good marketing decision.
They did. They didn't know it.
Yeah, right.
Hey, thanks, Nate.
Yeah.
That was awesome. We'll be back next week.
Okay, good. Yeah, glad to hear you.
Absolutely. Love that. That was really
Let us know if you have any feedback.
Waste one more time.
So you were here last time.
Wow.
Yeah. Was this better timing tonight than it was?
I know that there was a couple times, the last 2 times that I came,
Yeah.
I was here till like 9:45. 9:30 was still content,
Yeah.
and then 9:45 is like out the door leaving.
Yeah, right.
Now I'm like done by 9. Now still same time, but I like it. Thanks.
Good. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I will very well.
Okay.
Awesome. Appreciate you
Yeah,
guys.
of course. I'm glad you came.
Yeah, I'll keep coming back. Recommitted. I'm done with my travels for a while.
Oh yeah, where'd you go?
Just a bunch of speaking to some college students and some high school kids as well. We work with one thing called Latinos in Action. They're one of our clients. Travel all over the country during their
mentioned that I do interesting that I help people find ways to I'm working with two companies that are doing $10 million 3D printers. So, only because I know a little bit about that business.
I just walked the house in
They keep telling me they're coming. You know, you seen those steps? Yeah. And conceptually, it should work. They're just waiting for somebody to commercialize them. Combine that with a tiny house.
They are already doing that. So,
yeah, that's a good place to start. Interesting to do a lot of work. Actually, the helicopters. The delivery would probably be interesting. I haven't seen them in years. But in huge markets, weird use. All have to trying to see.
I did something really, really bad. I had a fish when I was sleeping. Yeah, fish when you were sleeping. I lost my serious? I don't have
You could probably play. I could get some sounds. I love the sound of that. What happened?
I know, right? Exactly. It's all creative. But I just really
go across the ball and that's something different thing going on. I enjoyed that.
good. How did it sound for like that?
It's funny nice. Now I think
Oh yeah, huh?
oh my
So
goodness.
one of my mentors teaches there.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I've seen the video.
He's the director.
See, I think
Absolutely, 100%. So a good friend of mine, Tina Guo, she plays solo cello lines on almost every single film I've ever heard if another solo cello player. And she's gone. She's probably somebody who's an audience, but she's made millions of movies. She started musicians on how to create a real business, not just be a musician. Because being a musician is fine for you if you don't have family and you're on your own and all that.
She's okay with stairs in general. It's a lot better.
oh my.
Well,
I
the thing I've realized is taking things on the organized. Musicians have a hard time outside of music organizing, creating checklists, processes, that kind of stuff. So I totally, if they can teach
I thought it sounded great. Which color? Which color? I had the blue one, right? Which color? Green? Where's the green?
Sounds good. Not to be confused with BFG.
Where's the green mic? Okay.
I'm back. Si, senor.
That's good. Okay, go ahead.
what's... Are we still streaming? Yes. Stop it and delete it. So, I don't know, but every time we stream, that's what we need to do. Delete what? Delete. Oh, on Facebook? Yeah, just go to the Profluent page, go to the post, and delete it. No, I don't. We just have to know that it does. It doesn't matter. We have to do it a way that it does the right thing every time. Okay. Okay, this mic. Hello. Testing. Okay. Okay, good to see you, brother. Is this one on? The other mic's not on. Oh, but you're not starting with that mic on, right? Okay. Okay, you just tell me when we're streaming. Hey guys, this is Nathaniel Drew with Profluent Studios. Tonight I'm playing a Native American flute piece entitled Out of the Darkness.
forgot that I'm listening to something live.
Thanks, guys. Okay, we'll see you. There was a TM on it. I know.